A husband abandoned his wife and 4 children in a broken desert mobile home, no car, no phone, barely any food, and drove away at dawn. The mother walked 8 miles through the Nevada desert to save them. But what they built from that betrayal changed everything. Comment your country now. This true story from Nevada, 2019, is incredible. A family left to die who turned donated funds into a foundation that's helped over 20,000 families. Subscribe because this journey from abandonment to a $20 million foundation, featured in documentaries and studied nationwide, proves our worst moments can become our greatest purpose. The Morrison Family Foundation is real and operating in 7 states right now. Every detail verified. This happened. The sun hadn't yet broken over the horizon when Bradley Morrison's hands gripped the steering wheel of his battered Ford sedan, knuckles white with tension. He'd been sitting in the driver's seat for 17 minutes now, parked exactly 43 yards from the weathered mobile home where his wife and 4 children slept. His foot hovered over the gas pedal. Just drive. Just go. They'll be better off. The thought had been circling his mind for weeks, gaining strength each day like a desert storm gathering force. Bradley was 38 years old. A former insurance adjuster who'd lost everything when the company downsized. That was 14 months ago. Since then, every door had closed. Every opportunity had evaporated like morning dew in the Mojave heat. And now they were here. In this godforsaken corner of the Nevada desert, living in a decrepit mobile home with failing utilities, surviving on what little his wife could earn cleaning vacation rentals in a town 30 miles away. His chest tightened. The panic attacks had become daily occurrences now. They deserve better than this. Better than me. Bradley pressed the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, tires crunching on gravel and sand. He didn't look back. Not at the mobile home with its rust-streaked walls. Not at the broken swing set he'd promised to fix but never did. Not at the life he was abandoning. He just drove, heading east into the pre-dawn darkness, convinced he was doing the right thing even as every fiber of his being screamed that he was making the worst mistake of his life. Inside the mobile home, Vanessa Morrison stirred at the sound of the engine. She reached across the mattress they'd placed on the floor. The bed frame had broken months ago and they couldn't afford to fix it. Bradley's side was empty. That wasn't unusual. He often left early for the warehouse job he'd finally gotten, even though it barely paid minimum wage and the hours were unpredictable. Vanessa rolled over, pulling the thin blanket closer against the morning chill. The heating system had given out completely last week. They'd been using a small propane heater, but that was nearly empty too. She'd deal with it when she woke up properly. For now, she let herself drift back into sleep, unaware that her husband of 16 years had just driven away with no intention of returning. The 4 Morrison children were scattered throughout the cramped mobile home. Caleb, 14, slept on a foam mattress in what used to be a storage closet. He'd insisted on it, saying his sisters needed the actual bedroom more than he did. His clothes hung from nails hammered into the walls. His schoolbooks, he was still trying to keep up with online classes, were stacked in a cardboard box that doubled as a nightstand. The boy who'd once had his own room with posters of basketball players and a desk for homework now lived in a space barely larger than a closet. Sophia, 11, and Grace, 8, shared the single small bedroom, sleeping in a bunk bed that Vanessa had found at a yard sale for $20. Both girls had stopped inviting friends over months ago, too embarrassed by where they lived. Sophia had been an outgoing child once, always organizing playdates and sleepovers. Now she was withdrawn, ashamed, carrying the weight of poverty like a physical burden. Grace still tried to maintain her cheerfulness, but even she had started asking questions. Why don't we live in a real house anymore? When can we go back to our old home? Why is everything always broken? Noah, just 6 years old, slept in a sleeping bag on the floor next to Vanessa. He'd been having nightmares lately, about monsters, about being lost, about being hungry. Vanessa suspected the nightmares were less about fantasy and more about the reality of their situation translated into a child's symbolic language. Noah had been too young to remember their old life clearly. This mobile home, this poverty, this struggle, it was all he really knew now. And that broke Vanessa's heart more than anything. Bradley drove without direction, heading east on Highway 95, putting distance between himself and the family he'd failed. The note he'd left was tucked under a coffee mug on the kitchen counter, scrawled on the back of a past-due utility bill. I can't be what you need. You'll get assistance without me here. I'm sorry. -B. 37 words. That's all he'd managed to explain the abandonment of his wife and 4 children. As the miles accumulated, Bradley's mind churned through the rationalization he'd constructed. Vanessa can apply for welfare now. As a single mother with 4 kids, she'll qualify for everything: food assistance, housing vouchers, medical coverage. The kids will be better off. I was just dead weight. Another mouth to feed. Another person using resources we don't have. This is the right thing. The selfless thing. But even as these thoughts formed, a quieter voice whispered the truth. You're running because you're scared. You're abandoning them because facing your failure is too painful. You're choosing your own escape over their survival. Bradley turned up the radio, drowning out both voices, and kept driving into the rising sun. Vanessa woke fully at 7:23 a.m., her internal alarm more reliable than any clock. She had to be at the Sandstone Estates vacation community by 9. 3 properties to clean today. If she worked fast, she might make $110. She stood, her joints aching from the thin mattress and cold air, and wrapped a jacket around herself. The morning chill was bitter. She could see her breath inside the mobile home. Bradley, she called softly, not wanting to wake the children yet. No answer. She walked to the kitchen. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. That's when she saw the note. Vanessa picked it up, read it once, then read it again. Her brain refused to process the words. I can't be what you need. You'll get assistance without me here. I'm sorry. No, she whispered. No, no, no. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. She ran outside barefoot, ignoring the sharp stones and morning cold that bit into her skin. The car was gone. Bradley was gone. Vanessa stood in the empty dirt lot, the note crumpling in her fist, and felt her world fracture into 1,000 irreparable pieces. He'd left them. In a broken mobile home in the desert. With no vehicle. No way to get to town. No way to work. The nearest neighbor was 4 miles away. Cell service here was non-existent. They had a landline that barely worked on good days. They were stranded. Completely and utterly stranded. Vanessa's mind raced through the implications. No car meant she couldn't get to her cleaning jobs. No jobs meant no income. No income meant no food, no propane for heat, no way to survive. And Bradley knew all of this. He knew exactly what he was leaving them to face. The betrayal was so profound, so complete, that Vanessa couldn't even feel anger yet. Just shock. Just the numb disbelief of a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Vanessa forced herself to breathe, to think, to move past the shock. The children. She had to think about the children. They were her responsibility now. Hers alone. She went back inside, locked herself in the bathroom, and allowed herself exactly 3 minutes to break down, sobbing into a towel so the kids wouldn't hear. Then she washed her face with the last of the stored water, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to tell her children that their father was gone. That the man who was supposed to protect them, provide for them, love them unconditionally, had driven away into the desert morning and left them to whatever fate awaited. Caleb was the first to wake. At 14, he'd become attuned to stress in the household, hypervigilant to any sign of trouble. He found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a piece of paper, her face pale and drawn. "Mom, you okay?" Vanessa looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. "Sit down, honey. I need to tell you something." The tone of her voice brought the other children out of their rooms, sensing something wrong. Soon all 4 were gathered around the small table, their faces reflecting confusion and growing fear. Vanessa didn't sugarcoat it. They'd been through too much for her to lie now. "Your father left early this morning. He's not coming back." The words hung in the air like smoke. Silence. Then Sophia asked in a small voice, "Where did he go?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "When is he coming back?" Noah asked, his 6-year-old mind unable to process the permanence. "I don't think he is, baby." Caleb grabbed the note, read it, his jaw tightening with each word. At 14, he understood more than his siblings. "He abandoned us." "Caleb," Vanessa started. "That's what this says, Mom. He abandoned us. Just left us here with no car, no way to get anywhere." His voice cracked, the man-child trying so hard to be strong. How could he do this? How could he just leave us here? Vanessa pulled him close, then gathered all 4 children into her arms. "I don't know. I really don't know." Grace started crying, her small body shaking with sobs. Noah joined in, frightened by the fear he saw in his siblings' faces. Even Sophia, who usually tried to be brave, had tears streaming down her face. And Caleb, trying so hard to be the man of the house now, couldn't stop his own tears. They clung to each other, their small family huddled together in the cold mobile home, and Vanessa made a promise. "We are going to survive this. I don't know how yet, but we will. Your father may have given up on us, but I never will. Never. We're going to make it through this. Together. Do you hear me? Together." The immediate problem was survival. Vanessa had to assess their situation logically, without emotion, without the luxury of grief or anger. Transportation. None. Bradley had taken the only car. Money, $63 in her wallet, maybe $8 in change scattered around the mobile home. Food, 2 boxes of pasta, 1 can of sauce, half a jar of peanut butter, some crackers, 3 apples, milk that would go bad in 2 days since the refrigerator barely worked. Water, they had a 35-gallon storage tank that was about half full. The delivery truck came every 2 weeks. Next delivery wasn't scheduled for 9 more days. Communication, a landline phone that only sometimes worked, no cell service anywhere within miles. Heat, a propane heater with maybe 2 days of fuel left at most. Nearest help, the closest neighbor was 4 miles east, the town of Pahrump was 30 miles west. Vanessa did the math with growing dread. If she rationed carefully, they had maybe 5 days of food. 7 days of water if they were extremely careful, using it only for drinking and absolutely essential cooking. But the biggest problem was getting help. She tried the landline. Dead. The service had been cutting in and out for weeks, and apparently today it had decided to fail completely. She couldn't call for assistance. Couldn't call her cleaning jobs to explain why she wouldn't show up. Couldn't call anyone. They were completely isolated, stranded in the desert like shipwreck survivors on a barren island. Caleb saw his mother's face and understood. "We're stuck here, aren't we?" "For now," Vanessa admitted, seeing no point in lying. "But I have a plan." "What plan?" "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to walk to the Hendersons' place. It's 4 miles. I can make it in an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I'll use their phone, call for help, arrange for someone to pick us up." "What about today?" "Today, we conserve resources. We stay warm, stay together, and we prepare." "Prepare for what?" Grace asked nervously. "For surviving until help comes," Vanessa said. "And for what happens after?" "What happens after?" Sophia asked. "After we get out of here, we're going to have to rebuild everything. Find a new place to live. I'll need to find work I can actually get to. You kids will go back to real school. We'll figure out the details. But first, we survive." They spent that first day rationing carefully. Breakfast was crackers and peanut butter, split 5 ways, each portion maddeningly small. Lunch was half a can of pasta sauce with the last of the bread, toasted over the propane heater to make it seem more substantial. Dinner was plain pasta with the rest of the sauce, divided into portions that left everyone still hungry. Noah complained he was still hungry. They all were. The gnawing emptiness in their stomachs was a constant presence. "I know, baby," Vanessa said, pulling him close. "Tomorrow will be better. I promise." But even as she made the promise, she wondered if she could keep it. That night, they all slept in the main room together, using the propane heater to keep warm, conserving body heat by huddling close. Vanessa barely slept. Her mind raced with questions she couldn't answer. How could Bradley do this? How could he just leave? Did he ever love us? Was our entire marriage a lie? What kind of man abandons his children? Leaves them in the desert with no resources, no way to survive? But dwelling on those questions wouldn't help. She had to focus on survival first, processing the betrayal later. If there was a later. At dawn, Vanessa prepared for her walk to the Hendersons' property 4 miles east. She dressed in layers against the cold desert morning. Took a water bottle, carefully measured, a pint from their dwindling supply. Wore her most sturdy shoes, though even those were wearing thin. "Caleb, you're in charge while I'm gone. Keep your siblings inside. Keep them warm. Ration the food if they get hungry. I'll be back before lunch." "What if something happens to you?" Caleb asked, fear evident in his voice. "Nothing will happen. It's 4 miles, straight shot east. I've driven past the Hendersons' place 100 times. I know exactly where it is. But what if you get hurt, or lost or something?" "Caleb." Vanessa put her hands on his shoulders, looked him directly in the eyes. "I will come back. I will get help. I will fix this. I promise you." He nodded, trying to be brave, trying to be the man his father should have been. Vanessa kissed each of her children, holding them a moment longer than usual, then stepped out into the cold desert morning. The walk was harder than she'd anticipated. The dirt road was uneven, rocky, forcing her to watch every step. The morning sun, though providing light, offered little warmth yet. The desert air was crisp and biting. Her feet hurt within the first mile. By mile 2, she had blisters forming on both heels. The pain was sharp with every step, but she didn't stop. She thought about her children waiting in that cold mobile home. About Caleb trying to be strong. About Noah asking when Daddy was coming back. About Sophia and Grace huddling together for warmth. She thought about Bradley, wherever he was, and felt a flash of rage so intense it propelled her forward. How dare he? How dare he leave them? The anger was fuel. She used it, channeling it into each painful step. At mile 3, Vanessa's phone, which she'd brought even though there was no service at the mobile home, suddenly buzzed in her pocket. 1 bar of signal. Barely there, flickering, but something. Her hands shaking with cold and hope, she immediately dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My husband abandoned me and my 4 children in the desert. We're stranded with no vehicle, limited food and water, and the line cut out. No. Vanessa stared at the phone. No signal. She tried again. Nothing. She kept walking, checking the phone every 30 seconds, desperate for another brief connection to the outside world. At mile 3.5, another brief flicker of signal. She dialed again, her fingers clumsy with cold and urgency. This time she got through to a different dispatcher and managed to give their location. Old mobile home off Highway 95, 43 miles east of Pahrump, near mile marker 214, before the call dropped again. But it was something. They knew. Someone knew they were out here. Help would come. Vanessa felt a wave of relief so powerful she nearly collapsed right there in the dirt road. Instead, she kept walking. The Hendersons' place was just ahead. She'd use their landline to follow up, give more details, coordinate rescue. The Hendersons' property appeared on the horizon, a small ranch-style house with solar panels and a well-maintained yard, an oasis of civilization in the desert emptiness. Vanessa stumbled up to the front door and knocked, her knuckles raw from the cold. No answer. She knocked again, harder, more desperate. Still nothing. Then she saw it, a note taped to the door. Gone to Phoenix for 2 weeks. Back March 15th. Signed J. and M. Henderson. Vanessa wanted to scream. She wanted to collapse. She wanted to rage at the universe for this cosmic joke. But at least she'd gotten through to 911. Help was coming. Eventually. She sat on the Hendersons' porch, caught her breath, drank the last precious drops of her water, and started the 4-mile walk back to her children, every step agony on her blistered feet. By the time Vanessa returned to the mobile home, it was nearly noon and she was exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. Her feet were bleeding through her socks. Her lips were cracked from the dry air. Her body shook with fatigue and dehydration. The children rushed to her the moment she opened the door. "Did you get help?" Caleb asked urgently. "Yes," Vanessa managed, her voice hoarse. "I got through to 911 briefly. They know where we are. Someone will come. When? I don't know. But soon. What if they don't?" Vanessa pulled Caleb close, then gathered all her children around her. "They will. And if they don't come by tomorrow morning, I'll walk to the highway. It's farther, but there are cars there. Someone will help. I won't let us die out here. I won't." That afternoon, As the sun climbed higher and the temperature rose, they heard the sound that saved their lives. Vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. The children ran to the window. 2 sheriff's department SUVs pulled up to the mobile home, their lights flashing like beacons of hope. Deputy Angela Reeves stepped out, followed by her partner. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Deputy Reeves. We got a 911 call about an abandonment." Vanessa nearly collapsed with relief. "Yes. My husband left us here yesterday morning. Took our only car. We have 4 children, limited supplies, no way to get anywhere." Deputy Reeves's expression hardened as she took in the scene, the decrepit mobile home, the 4 children with dirty faces and hungry eyes, the obvious poverty and desperation. "Ma'am, what your husband did is criminal abandonment. We're going to get you and your children somewhere safe, and we're going to find him." Within hours, social services arrived. A caseworker named Patricia Okonkwo assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen too much human suffering. "Mrs. Morrison, we're taking you and your children to emergency housing in Pahrump. We'll get you set up with immediate assistance, food, medical care, whatever you need." "What about our stuff?" Sophia asked in a small voice. "We'll help you pack what you need," Patricia said gently. "The important thing is getting you all somewhere warm and safe." As they loaded the few belongings worth taking, clothes, school materials, a few treasured possessions, Vanessa took one last look at the mobile home that had been their prison. "I'll never live like this again," she said quietly but with steel in her voice. "Never." Deputy Reeves, who was helping carry boxes, overheard. "No, ma'am. You won't. We're going to make sure of that." The Riverside Emergency Family Shelter was basic but clean. 1 large room with 5 cots, shared bathrooms down the hall, a communal kitchen where volunteers served meals. To the Morrison children, after months in the mobile home, it felt like luxury. Warm air that didn't require rationing propane. Running water that didn't come from a storage tank. Lights that worked at the flip of a switch. Food served on actual plates by kind people who smiled at them. Noah ate 3 helpings of chicken and rice at dinner, his small stomach unused to being full. Grace took a shower that lasted 20 minutes, standing under the warm water until Patricia gently knocked to remind her others were waiting. Sophia cried from relief, from exhaustion, from the release of months of tension. Caleb tried to stay strong but Vanessa saw him shaking, the weight of responsibility finally lifting from his 14-year-old shoulders. "It's okay to feel everything," she told him, pulling him close. "We're safe now." "Are we?" he asked. "What happens when we have to leave here?" "We'll figure it out. One day at a time." That night, all 5 of them slept in real beds with clean sheets, under a roof that didn't leak, in a building with heat that worked. Vanessa lay awake though, her mind churning. The immediate crisis was solved. But what came next? She had no job now, she'd missed her shifts and couldn't get to work anyway. No car. No home. 4 children depending on her. And somewhere out there, Bradley was free, having escaped the consequences of his actions while they suffered. Not if I can help it, Vanessa thought grimly. The following morning, Patricia returned with paperwork and plans. "Mrs. Morrison, here's what we can offer immediately. You can stay in this shelter for up to 30 days. During that time, we'll help you apply for transitional housing, food assistance, medical coverage for all of you, and employment services." "What about school for the kids?" Vanessa asked. "We'll enroll them in the local district starting next week. Transportation provided." Vanessa felt overwhelming gratitude washing over her. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's something else, Patricia said carefully. The sheriff's department wants to pursue charges against your husband. Child abandonment, endangerment, potentially more. They need your cooperation. Are you willing to press charges? Vanessa didn't hesitate. Whatever they need. He left us to die in the desert. He should face consequences. I understand completely, Patricia said. Deputy Reeves will be here this afternoon to take your formal statement. Later that day, Vanessa sat across from Deputy Reeves in a private office at the shelter. Mrs. Morrison, I need you to walk me through everything. When did your husband leave? What did the note say? What resources did he leave you with? How did you survive? Vanessa recounted it all, her voice steady despite the pain of reliving it. The morning she'd found the note. The inventory of their meager supplies. The failed phone. The desperate walk to the Hendersons' property. The brief 911 calls that had saved their lives. Did your husband give any indication he was planning this? Deputy Reeves asked. No. I mean, he was depressed. We both were. Living in that mobile home was horrific. But I never thought he'd just leave. Abandon the children. Has he contacted you since? No. Nothing. Do you have any idea where he might have gone? No. His family is all deceased. We don't have close friends anymore. We lost touch with people when we lost everything else. He's completely alone. Deputy Reeves made notes. We've issued a warrant for his arrest. We're checking credit card activity, phone records, everything we can. We'll find him. 3 days later, Deputy Reeves called with news. We found him. Bradley Morrison was located at a cheap motel in Riverside, California, barely 50 miles from where he'd abandoned his family. He'd been holed up there, living off the one credit card that wasn't maxed out, drowning in guilt and indecision, unable to move forward or back. When officers knocked on his door at 6 in the morning, Bradley opened it willingly, almost with relief. I know why you're here, he said quietly. I know what I did. They arrested him without incident, reading him his rights as he stood there in sweatpants and an undershirt, looking like a ghost of the man he'd been. At his arraignment, Bradley pled not guilty on advice of his public defender, though he'd privately admitted everything to the lawyer. Mr. Morrison, the judge said, reading the charges with obvious disgust. You abandoned 4 children in an uninhabitable location with insufficient resources. You left them without transportation, without adequate food or water, without means of communication. Do you understand the severity of these allegations? Yes, Your Honor, Bradley whispered. Bail is set at $50,000. Bradley couldn't make bail. He remained in custody, which was probably safer anyway. The local news had picked up the story and public opinion was brutal. Bradley's public defender, a tired woman named Sandra Martinez, approached Vanessa after the hearing. Mrs. Morrison, my client wants to speak with you. Would you be willing? Vanessa's first instinct was to refuse. To let Bradley rot in his cell without the comfort of her forgiveness or understanding. But curiosity won out. Fine. But I'm not promising anything. The meeting was arranged for the following day at the county jail. Vanessa sat across from Bradley in a small visitation room, a plexiglass barrier between them, phones connecting their voices but nothing else. Bradley looked terrible. Thinner, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. He tried to speak first. Vanessa, I don't, she cut him off, her voice cold as desert night. Don't you dare apologize. Apologies are words. You left our children in the desert to die. That's not something you apologize for. That's something you live with forever. I know, Bradley said, his voice breaking. I know there's nothing I can say. But you need to understand, I was in such a dark place. I thought you'd be better off without me. That the state would help you if I wasn't there. That's the most selfish logic I've ever heard, Vanessa said. You thought abandoning us was helpful. You convinced yourself that leaving 4 children in a broken mobile home with no car, no phone, limited food and water, was somehow an act of love. Yes, Bradley admitted, tears streaming down his face. I convinced myself of that. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. You were depressed, Vanessa said. I understand that. I was depressed too. We were both drowning. But I didn't abandon our children. I stayed. I fought. Because that's what parents do. They fight even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I know. You're right. I failed in every possible way. Bradley wiped his eyes. How are the kids? They're surviving. No thanks to you. Caleb says he hates you. Sophia has nightmares. Grace won't talk about you at all. Noah keeps asking when you're coming home and I have to tell him you're not. You did that. Those wounds are on you. I know. Can I see them? Eventually. Vanessa's voice was iron. Not now. Maybe not for years. You're going to have to earn that right. And I'm not sure you ever can. Bradley's trial came 6 months later. He pled guilty to all charges: child abandonment, child endangerment, criminal negligence. The prosecutor laid out the case in devastating detail. The defendant left his wife and 4 children, ages 6 through 14, in an uninhabitable mobile home in the Nevada desert. The home had no reliable heating, no functioning phone service, limited food and water supplies. The nearest neighbor was 4 miles away. The nearest town was 30 miles away. The family had no transportation. The defendant took the only vehicle and drove away, leaving a note but providing no resources for survival. If not for the mother's extraordinary efforts to walk miles for help, and the intervention of law enforcement, this could easily have been a case of 4 counts of negligent homicide. The judge showed no mercy. Mr. Morrison, in my 30 years on the bench, I've seen many cases of parental failure. But this ranks among the most egregious. You didn't just fail your children. You actively endangered their lives. Your actions could have resulted in their deaths. The sentence is 2 years in state prison, 3 years probation upon release, mandatory therapy, and $40,000 in restitution to be paid to your family. Bradley accepted the sentence without protest. I deserve this, he told the judge. I deserve worse. After sentencing, Bradley's lawyer asked if Vanessa wanted to make a statement. She did. Bradley, she said, standing to address him directly. I want you to understand something. You didn't just abandon us that day. You killed the man I married. The Bradley I loved would never have done this. That man is dead. I don't know who you are anymore. All I know is that you have 2 years to figure out who you want to become. Because the man you were when you drove away that morning, that man is not welcome in our lives. Ever. Use this time. Get help. Become better. Not for me. For yourself. And maybe, when you get out, You'll be someone our children can know without flinching. While Bradley served his time, Vanessa rebuilt their lives from scratch. Patricia helped her navigate the assistance programs. Within 2 months, they were in transitional housing, a small 2-bedroom apartment in Pahrump. Not luxurious, but it had everything they'd lacked. Heat, running water, a working kitchen, safety, stability. Vanessa got a job at a local grocery store, earning $17 an hour. Combined with food assistance and subsidized housing, they could survive. More than survive, they could begin to heal. The children enrolled in school. Caleb, now 15, struggled initially. He'd missed so much, fallen behind in his coursework. But his teachers noticed his determination and arranged tutoring. Within a semester, he was caught up and excelling. Sophia and Grace threw themselves into school activities, joining clubs, making friends, rediscovering the social lives they'd lost. Noah, now 7, had only vague memories of the mobile home and the abandonment. For him, this apartment, this life was normal, happy, stable. But Vanessa wanted more than stability. She wanted purpose. She couldn't stop thinking about their experience. How many other families were out there, trapped in similar situations, living in inadequate housing, struggling with poverty, one crisis away from disaster, one desperate decision away from tragedy. She began researching, learning about family crisis intervention, poverty assistance programs, mental health resources for struggling parents. An idea began forming. 6 months after the trial, Vanessa received an unexpected visitor. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Jennifer Hayes. I'm a freelance journalist. I've been following your case. I'd like to write about your story." Vanessa's guard went up immediately. "I'm not interested in being tabloid fodder." "I understand," Jennifer said quickly. "But that's not what I do. I write long-form investigative pieces about systemic issues. Your story isn't just about one family's tragedy. It's about how we fail families in crisis. About the gaps in our social safety net. About the desperation that drives people to unthinkable decisions. I want to tell that bigger story, and I think it could help others." Vanessa considered this. "What would you need from me?" "Interviews. Access to documentation with your permission. The chance to follow your rebuilding process. But you'd have editorial approval. This would be your story, told your way." "Let me think about it," Vanessa said. She discussed it with the children that evening. Caleb was immediately skeptical. "People will judge us. They'll see us as victims." "Or they won't," Vanessa countered. "They'll see us as survivors. They'll see that you can come back from rock bottom. That abandonment doesn't define you. How you respond to it does." Sophia, now 12, nodded slowly. "I want people to know what Dad did was wrong. But also that we're okay. That we made it." Grace, 9, agreed. And Noah, not fully understanding but trusting his mother, said okay. Jennifer's article appeared 3 months later in a major magazine. "Abandoned in the Desert, One Family's Fight to Survive and Rebuild." It was powerful, unflinching, honest. It detailed the abandonment, the desperate walk for help, the rescue, the trial. But it also told the story of what came after. How Vanessa had rebuilt their lives. How the children had thrived despite trauma. How one family's worst nightmare had become a testament to resilience. The article went viral. Within days, Vanessa's email was flooded with messages. Other families sharing similar stories. Journalists requesting interviews. Non-profit organizations reaching out. And donations. Thousands of people sent money, wanting to help the family who'd survived the unthinkable. Within 2 weeks, over $38,000 had been donated. Vanessa was overwhelmed. "This is too much. We don't need this much." "Then use it to help others," Jennifer suggested. "Start something." That's when the idea crystallized fully. Vanessa used a portion of the donated funds to register a non-profit organization, Desert Phoenix Support Network. The mission was simple but powerful. Providing emergency assistance to families in crisis before they reached the breaking point. Before desperation drove them to desperate measures. Before another parent made the terrible decision Bradley had made. The services they offered were born directly from Vanessa's experience. Emergency financial assistance for families facing eviction or utility shutoffs. Mental health resources for struggling parents. Job placement services. Housing navigation. Family counseling. A crisis hotline staffed by trained volunteers. Every service addressed a gap Vanessa had fallen through. Every program was designed to catch families before they fell as far as the Morrisons had fallen. Jennifer documented everything for a follow-up piece. The response was overwhelming. The first family Desert Phoenix helped was a single father named Marcus with 3 children, facing eviction after losing his job. Vanessa met with him personally. "I've been where you are," she told him. "I know what it's like to watch everything crumble. But you don't have to go through this alone." They connected Marcus with emergency rental assistance, job training, child care resources. Within 2 months, he was employed and stable. When he came to thank Vanessa, he broke down crying. "You saved my family. If you hadn't helped, I don't know what I would have done." "I might have." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I know," Vanessa said gently. "That's exactly why we do this. So parents don't reach that point. So families stay together." Within the first year, Desert Phoenix helped 47 families. The donated funds were carefully managed, stretched to help as many people as possible. Volunteers contributed thousands of hours. Local businesses partnered to provide job opportunities. Therapists offered pro bono counseling. A community built around the simple idea that families in crisis deserved support, not judgment. Meanwhile, Bradley served his time. He was a model prisoner, quiet, compliant, spending his days in the prison library reading books on psychology, addiction, depression. He attended every therapy session offered, working through the shame and self-loathing that had driven him to abandon his family. His therapist diagnosed him with severe clinical depression and anxiety, untreated for years. The abandonment wasn't just selfishness, the therapist explained in a report. It was a mental health crisis that manifested as a catastrophically bad decision. That doesn't excuse it. But it explains it. Understanding why he'd done it didn't make Bradley feel better. If anything, it made the guilt worse. "I should have gotten help," he wrote in his journal. "I should have asked for therapy, medication, support. Instead I ran. I destroyed my family because I was too proud and too scared to admit I was broken." After 18 months, Bradley was eligible for parole. The hearing was brief. "Mr. Morrison," the parole board chairman said, "you've been a model prisoner. You've completed all required programs. Your therapist reports significant progress. However, your crime was serious. You endangered children. Do you understand why we're hesitant to release you? Yes, sir, Bradley said. I endangered my own children. I failed them in the most fundamental way a parent can fail. I understand if you deny parole. I deserve to serve my full sentence. But we're not here to punish you forever, the chairman said. We're here to determine if you're safe to return to society. Your therapist believes you are. Your record supports that. Parole is granted with conditions. You'll report to a parole officer weekly. You'll continue therapy. You'll maintain employment. You'll have no contact with your family unless they initiate it. And you'll pay the restitution as ordered. Do you accept these terms? I do, Bradley said. Thank you for this chance. Bradley was released 3 days later. He found a room in a halfway house, got a job at a construction company, reported to his parole officer as required. He wanted to contact Vanessa to see his children, but he honored the condition. No contact unless they initiated. So he waited, working on himself, trying to become someone worthy of their forgiveness. Trying to become the man he should have been all along. 2 years after the abandonment, Desert Phoenix Support Network had grown beyond anyone's expectations. They now had a permanent office, funded by a combination of donations, grants, and fundraising events. They employed 5 staff members including Vanessa as executive director, earning a modest salary for the first time since the grocery store. They'd helped over 200 families, preventing evictions, keeping families together, providing the support Vanessa had desperately needed but never received. The work was exhausting but fulfilling. Every family helped felt like redemption, like proof that their suffering had meaning. Caleb, now 16, volunteered at the office after school. He'd grown into a serious, thoughtful young man, interested in social work and psychology. I want to help people the way you help people, he told his mother. But I also want to understand why people break. Why Dad broke. So I can help prevent it. Sophia, 13, managed the organization's social media, telling stories of families they'd helped, sharing resources, building community. Grace, 10, organized donation drives at her school, already showing leadership skills beyond her years. And Noah, 8, just knew his mom helped people and that made him proud. Then one evening, Vanessa received a call from an unknown number. Mrs. Morrison, this is Bradley. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but my parole officer approved this call. I need to tell you something. Vanessa's first instinct was to hang up. But curiosity stopped her. What? I saw the article about Desert Phoenix. About the work you're doing. It's incredible. I'm not calling for praise, Bradley said quickly. I'm calling because I want to help. I want to volunteer. Donate my time. Whatever you need. I want to help families so they don't end up where we were. Where I put us. Why should I trust you? Vanessa asked coldly. You shouldn't, Bradley admitted. I haven't earned that. But I'm asking for the chance to prove myself. Not to you. Not to the kids. To the families who need help. Let me be useful. Let me turn my worst mistake into something good. Vanessa was silent for a long moment. I'll think about it. She discussed it with the staff, with Patricia who'd become a close friend and board member. He abandoned his family, one staff member said. How can we trust him around vulnerable families? We don't put him in client-facing roles, Patricia suggested. Back office work. Administration. Let him prove himself slowly. If he's genuine, it'll show. If he's not, we'll know quickly. Vanessa called Bradley back. You can volunteer. But only administrative work. You don't interact with clients. You don't represent the organization publicly. You're just a volunteer doing filing and data entry. And if you miss one shift, if you're late once, if you do anything that suggests you're not fully committed, you're done. I understand, Bradley said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you. This is more than I deserve. Yes, Vanessa agreed. It is. The first time Bradley showed up at the Desert Phoenix office, the atmosphere was tense. The staff watched him warily. Caleb, who was there after school, walked out immediately. I can't be in the same room as him, he told his mother. That's okay, Vanessa said. You don't have to be. But Bradley showed up consistently. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, 6 to 9 p.m. He filed documents, entered data into their client management system, organized donation records. He never complained. Never asked for recognition. Just worked quietly, efficiently, trying to be useful. After 2 months, one of the staff members grudgingly admitted, he's reliable at least. After 4 months, another said, he's actually good at this. He reorganized our entire filing system and it's so much better now. After 6 months, Patricia pulled Vanessa aside. I never thought I'd say this, but I think he's genuine. I think he really has changed. Vanessa watched Bradley carefully during those months. Watched how he worked with quiet humility. How he never made excuses. How he treated the organization's mission with reverence, as if he understood he was handling something sacred. She watched how he asked permission before suggesting improvements, how he deferred to staff, how he made himself small and useful. It was so different from the man who'd driven away into the desert dawn. That man had been drowning in ego and shame. This man seemed to have put ego aside entirely. After 8 months of consistent volunteering, Bradley asked if he could attend a staff meeting. Just to listen. To understand the work better. Vanessa allowed it. He sat in the back, taking notes, asking thoughtful questions about how they identified families in crisis, how they prioritized limited resources, how they measured impact. At the end, he raised his hand tentatively. I have a suggestion. If you don't want to hear it, that's fine. Go ahead, Vanessa said. You're doing incredible work connecting families with resources. But I wonder if there's a preventative piece missing. Mental health screening for parents under stress. Early intervention before crisis hits. I was drowning for months before I abandoned you all. If someone had caught that, had offered help, maybe, he stopped emotional. Maybe it never would have happened, Patricia finished. That's actually brilliant. We're so focused on crisis response that we're not thinking about prevention. Could we develop a screening tool? Partner with therapists to offer early intervention. The idea sparked a new program direction. Desert Phoenix began offering free mental health screenings at community centers, schools, anywhere stressed parents gathered. They partnered with local therapists to provide early intervention counseling. The program, which they called the Early Warning Initiative, was Bradley's idea, but he refused any credit. This isn't about me, he insisted. It's about helping families. A year after Bradley started volunteering, Sophia asked to talk to him. Just coffee. Just the two of them. Vanessa was surprised but allowed it. At the coffee shop, Sophia was direct. Why did you leave us? Bradley didn't dodge. Because I was broken. Depressed. Convinced you'd be better without me. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. Grandpa Harold, wait, you know about that? Bradley asked, surprised. Mom told us, Sophia said. About how your dad abandoned you when you were 8. How you thought he was dead, but really he just left. Yes, Bradley said quietly. I thought I'd buried that pain. But I guess it shaped me more than I knew. When I was drowning, when everything was falling apart, some part of me remembered that men leave. That's what my father did when things got hard. So I repeated the pattern. But you came back. In a way. You're trying. He left and never looked back. That's the difference, Bradley said. I came back because I realized my father was wrong. Abandonment isn't strength. It's weakness. Real strength is staying. Fighting. Being there even when it's hard. I learned that too late. But I learned it. Sophia studied him. I don't forgive you yet. I might never fully forgive you. But I see you're trying. That counts for something. Thank you, Bradley said, tears in his eyes. That's more than I deserve. Over the following year, Grace also reached out. Then eventually even Caleb, grudgingly, agreed to have lunch with his father. The conversations were painful, honest, necessary. Each child processed the abandonment in their own way, set their own boundaries, determined their own path toward whatever relationship, if any, they wanted with their father. Noah, now 10, had the easiest relationship with Bradley because he remembered the abandonment least. He just knew his dad as the guy who volunteers with mom and seems nice. The innocence of childhood was both a blessing and a complexity. Bradley had to earn forgiveness from the older children, but Noah's easy affection was unearned grace. It humbled Bradley in ways the older children's anger never could. 3 years after the abandonment, Desert Phoenix had become a model program studied by nonprofits across the country. They'd helped over 600 families. Their early intervention program had provided mental health support to hundreds of at-risk parents. Their emergency assistance had prevented countless evictions and kept families housed. Their success rate was remarkable. 87% of families they helped remained stable a year later. Vanessa was invited to speak at conferences, to consult with other organizations, to share their model. At one such conference, she was asked, "What drives you? What keeps you doing this work when you could have walked away from all of this pain?" Vanessa thought about the question carefully before answering. 3 years ago, my husband abandoned me and our 4 children in a mobile home in the desert. We almost died. That could have destroyed us. Could have made us bitter, broken, unable to move forward. Instead, we decided our suffering had to mean something. Every family we help, every crisis we prevent, every parent we support before they break, that's us taking our worst experience and transforming it into purpose. That's how we survive trauma. Not by forgetting it, but by using it to help others. The audience gave her a standing ovation. After her speech, a woman approached. "Mrs. Morrison, my name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I run a foundation that funds innovative social programs. I'd like to offer Desert Phoenix a major grant." "How major?" Vanessa asked cautiously. $5 million over 5 years. To expand your model statewide. Vanessa nearly fainted. That's incredible. But why? Because your model works, Dr. Chen said. Because you're preventing family dissolution at a fraction of the cost of dealing with the aftermath. Because your lived experience makes you uniquely qualified to design these interventions. And because your story is proof that people can transform their worst moments into their greatest contributions. With the grant, Desert Phoenix expanded dramatically. They opened 5 regional offices across Nevada. They hired 30 staff members. They helped over 2,000 families annually. The Early Warning Initiative became a statewide program, screening tens of thousands of parents and connecting at-risk families with support before crisis hit. They developed partnerships with schools, hospitals, employers, anywhere stressed families could be identified and helped early. The impact was measurable and profound. Family abandonment rates in the areas they served dropped by 43%. Child welfare cases declined. Homelessness among families with children decreased significantly. Bradley remained involved, now as a full-time paid staff member coordinating the early warning initiative. He'd proven himself over 3 years of consistent, humble service. The board had voted to bring him on officially, with Vanessa abstaining from the vote to avoid any appearance of impropriety. He earned a modest salary and poured his heart into the work. Every parent he helped felt like a small redemption. Every family kept together felt like partial atonement for the family he'd torn apart. 5 years after the abandonment, on the anniversary of that terrible day, Vanessa gathered her children, now 19, 16, 13, and 11, for a family meeting. "I want to tell you about a decision I've made," she said. "The foundation that's been funding us wants to create a legacy fund. A permanent endowment that will keep Desert Phoenix running even after I'm gone. They're asking permission to name it the Morrison Family Foundation. To honor our story, our survival, our transformation." Caleb, now a college sophomore studying social work, spoke first. "That feels right. Our name is associated with abandonment and tragedy. This changes the narrative. Our name becomes associated with helping families instead." Sophia, 16 and already volunteering extensively with the organization, agreed. "We get to define what Morrison means. Not Dad's failure. Our response." Grace, 13, nodded enthusiastically. "And it helps people forever. That's cool." Noah, 11, simply said, "I like it." Vanessa smiled. "Then it's decided. The Morrison Family Foundation will continue this work long after we're gone. Our pain will help families for generations." At the foundation's official launch event, the entire family was present, including Bradley, standing in the back, not on stage, but present. Vanessa gave a speech. "5 years ago, my husband made the worst decision of his life. He abandoned his family. It nearly destroyed us. It could have ended us. But we chose differently. We chose to survive, to rebuild, to transform our trauma into purpose. This foundation represents that choice. It represents the idea that our worst moments don't define us. Our response to those moments defines us. And our response was to help others." After the speech, Caleb did something unexpected. He walked to the back of the room and brought Bradley forward. "My father abandoned us," Caleb said into the microphone, his voice steady. "That's a fact. It happened. It hurt us in ways we're still healing from. But it's also a fact that he came back. Not physically at first, but he came back to the work of being better. He's spent 5 years proving he's changed. Working with this organization. Helping families. Trying to prevent others from making his mistake. I don't speak for my siblings. We each have our own relationship with him. But I want to acknowledge that people can change. That redemption is real. That even the worst failures can lead to growth." Bradley was crying openly. "Thank you," he managed to say. "I don't deserve this recognition. I don't deserve to be on this stage. But if my worst mistake can help even one family stay together, if my failure can prevent another child from experiencing what you all experienced, then maybe there's purpose in this pain." The room erupted in applause. It was messy, complicated, imperfect forgiveness. But it was real. 10 years after the abandonment, Desert Phoenix had become a national model. They'd expanded to 7 states. They'd helped over 15,000 families. The Early Warning Initiative had screened over 100,000 parents and provided early intervention to thousands. The measurable impact was staggering. Family abandonment rates in communities they served had dropped by 61%. Child welfare interventions had decreased by 47%. The cost savings to state systems were in the hundreds of millions. Vanessa, now 44, had become a national voice on family crisis intervention. She'd written a book, testified before Congress, consulted with dozens of nonprofits. But she never forgot where it started. In a rusted mobile home in the Nevada desert. With 4 terrified children and a mother who refused to give up. Every family we help, she told new staff members during orientation, represents a choice. The choice to stay when leaving seems easier. The choice to fight when surrender seems inevitable. The choice to transform pain into purpose. That's not just our organization's mission. That's my family's story. The Morrison children had all found their paths. Caleb, 24, was a licensed social worker at Desert Phoenix, managing their crisis intervention team. He'd married young, to a woman he met volunteering, and they were expecting their first child. "I'm going to be the father mine wasn't," Caleb told Bradley during a rare dinner together. "I'm going to show my kids that men stay. That families matter more than fear." Bradley wept openly. "I know you will. You're already a better man than I was." Sophia, 21, had started her own nonprofit focused specifically on mental health support for children of abandonment. Her organization partnered closely with Desert Phoenix but focused on the next generation, providing counseling and support groups for kids experiencing what she'd experienced. Grace, 18, was studying social policy at university, determined to change laws and systems to better support families in crisis. And Noah, 16, volunteered extensively while in high school, already showing the leadership and compassion that would define his adult life. Bradley, now 53, had never remarried. He dedicated his life entirely to the work and to slowly, carefully building relationships with his adult children. He would never live with them again. Would never be the father he'd been before the abandonment. But he was present. Reliable. Consistently showing up. That counted for something. Not everything, but something. On the 10th anniversary of the abandonment, the family held a private ceremony at the site of the old mobile home. It had been torn down years ago, the lot empty except for desert brush reclaiming the space. They stood together, Vanessa, the 4 children now grown, and Bradley at a respectful distance. Vanessa spoke. 10 years ago, we almost died here. One man's moment of weakness nearly ended 5 lives. But we survived. And we decided our survival had to matter. This empty lot represents both our worst day and our greatest transformation. The Morrison Family Foundation has now helped over 20,000 families. Prevented countless abandonments. Kept families together. Changed laws. Shifted systems. All because we refused to let this place, this moment, define us. She turned to Bradley. You made the worst decision of your life here. Yes, he acknowledged quietly. But you also came back. You spent a decade making amends. Working to prevent others from making your mistake. Does that erase what you did? No. Never. But does it mean something? The children answered for themselves. Caleb, yes. It means something. Sophia, it doesn't erase the past. But it builds a different future. Grace, you hurt us. But you also helped thousands of families not get hurt. That matters. Noah, you're my dad. You made a huge mistake. But you're still my dad. Vanessa spoke last. I don't love you anymore. Not the way I did. That marriage died in this desert. But I respect what you've become. I respect the work you've done. And I'm grateful that our children have a father who, however imperfectly, showed them that people can change. That's worth something. Bradley nodded, accepting this complicated grace. Thank you, all of you, for letting me try, for letting me be part of the solution instead of just the problem. They placed a memorial marker on the site, not for the abandonment, but for what came after. Here stood the Morrison family mobile home. Here began a journey from desperation to purpose. Here started the Morrison Family Foundation, which has helped 20,000 families survive their darkest moments. Here we learned that our worst experiences can become our greatest teachers. Here we chose transformation over bitterness. Here we chose hope. As they drove away, Vanessa looked in the rearview mirror at the empty desert lot growing smaller behind them. That place had almost destroyed them. Instead, it had forged them into something stronger. The Morrison family wasn't defined by abandonment anymore. They were defined by survival, by resilience, by the choice to help others, by the legacy they'd built from the wreckage of their worst day. That was the true miracle. Not that they'd survived, but what they'd built with their survival. A foundation that would help families for generations. A model that other communities could follow. Children who'd transformed their trauma into vocations of service. And even a father who'd failed catastrophically, but spent a decade proving that failure wasn't final. The desert sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds as they drove toward home. Toward the life they'd built. Toward the future that almost hadn't existed. And Vanessa thought, we made it. Against all odds, despite everything, we made it. And we made sure our survival mattered. That was enough. That was everything.